Apple's iPad is still the best tablet out there and nobody has been able to come close to it. The Surface, Microsoft Surface is an interesting device, but it's not really a tablet per se. We have the new Apple iPad Pro and it's bigger, it's brighter, it's more powerful and it has a pencil. And here is Steroid Sahil with his exclusive review of the new Apple iPad Pro.
Let me ask you guys a question. When you guys need to get work done, real office work done, what is the device you revert to? Chances are it's a laptop. Well, fret not, because I also use one. I use a MacBook Pro and I like its big wide keyboard. I love the screen on it. It's plenty fast, it delivers good battery life, and also while doing all this, it's pretty light also. And now Apple also wants to demonstrate that it can do the same with the iPad. It has launched the iPad Pro, which is super expensive, yet according to Apple, it's extremely powerful. So let's find out if it can deliver the promise of the post-PC era and get work done. So what's good about the iPad Pro? Well, for starters, it's brilliant at what an iPad does, which means consuming content. I can just lean back and easily handle this iPad despite its massive size with one hand and browse the web, consume a lot of the articles on the India Today website, play games and do whatnot. Compared to a device like the Surface Pro 3, it is massively slimmer and also feels lighter. Yes, the Surface is heavier despite being smaller and also thicker. This display is just drop dead gorgeous. It's bright, it's vivid, and it is immensely sharp, even compared to the fantastic display on the Surface Pro 3. Apple is not kidding about the performance out here, because I can really play high resolution games. I can edit 3 streams of 4K video in one go, and it just works. You feel no stutters, no lag. This is a monster at multitasking. So I can have my Outlook mail open out here and then cleverly swipe like this, and I have wordplay running out here. Swipe down, I can cycle through a bunch of apps out here, and I can open Safari, anything basically. And it's very simple and it just works. And that's what Apple is known to do. While the iPad Pro is a really slick piece of hardware, all is not well out here. For starters, for me to get work done, I need to edit photos. I need a full version of Adobe Photoshop working on it, which is not available right now for the iPad Pro. Well, most desktop applications, they don't have proper equivalents for the iPad. And while Apple is true and has also showcased that the iPad Pro is a really powerful tool, well, the apps aren't just there. Then the second issue is that I need my USB, I need connectivity, I need a file system in place. And yes, I also need a mouse. And again, the iPad Pro does not support all of these things. Well, if I was in the US, I could have made a few tweaks around my workflow and made things work to work with the iPad. But the reality is I live in India and I can't live without these things. The accessories that Apple is providing, which by the way are obscenely priced, are very powerful yet aren't perfect. They aren't cleverly designed. For example, the Surface keyboard is very simple and very cleverly designed. I can just do this and snap it back, boom, it works. For the iPad, well, it's a different story altogether. First of all, I have to sort of hope that it sort of latches in, which it has. Then I have to open it up all the way, and then I have to connect it, and then I am good to type. But then again, I don't have a mouse out here, which is not perfect for me. And then there's this curious case of this Apple Pencil, which is huge, yet a very powerful piece of technology. But again, it gets charged in this really stupid and disgusting way. It just dangles like this. The big problem with the iPad Pro out here is that it is not perfect in terms of getting work done. It does not have a lot of productivity apps. Its accessories aren't perfect. While The device itself is a really slick and powerful piece of technology, but we have to remember we are in India. We need to get a lot of things done, and yet again this costs around about 67,000 rupees, which is a lot of money. In fact, you can get a MacBook Air for lesser than this. It's not meant for a person who really wants to get work done. It's meant for an Apple fanatic. It's meant for a person who thinks he can get work done with it but is really winging it.
Panasonic is out with their new smartphone. It's called the Panasonic Luga, and I was trying desperately to get my hands on it, and I did. Here is a review.
Gaurav has been dying to review this phone, but I just had to snatch it away from him because this is the latest edition in the Panasonic Iluga series. And Panasonic is one brand which is known for giving the most wackiest names for its phones. The Panasonic Iluga X, the Panasonic Iluga A, the Panasonic Iluga L, L2. They go all out with their names, and with this one, they've actually given it a whole word. This one is called the Panasonic Iluga Mark. So let's venture into this budget phone and figure out if it makes a mark or not. This is the oddly named Panasonic Iluga Mark. And it does leave a mark, but for all the wrong reasons. For the price that it's sold at, Mark's spec sheet reads like a very tempting proposition. The phone features an octa-core Snapdragon 615 processor, 2 GB of RAM, a 13 megapixel rear camera, 16 GB onboard storage, which is expandable up to 32 GB via micro SD, and a 2500 mAh battery. The problem is, the hardware is only one part of the experience. But on the whole, the user experience needs to come together to work for the users and not against them. And barring Panasonic's odd naming conventions, the phone itself seems like a paradox. Mark's customized launcher on top of Android 5.1 just isn't very well optimized and tends to bog the phone down. While it's true that you can pretty much slap any launcher you want to on top of Android, Mark still manages to be just an average performer. The screen at 5.5 inches is plenty big, but isn't vibrant. Worse yet, even at full brightness, the screen tends to wash out and is just generally dull. Much of this can be attributed to Panasonic's insistence to use a 720p display, which paired with a screen of this size just doesn't cut it. The fingerprint scanner on the back is also iffy. While it will register your prints half the time, there are occasions when you place your finger on it expecting the screen to unlock and nothing happens. The 13 megapixel camera on the back isn't anything special either, offering photos which are just about average. But Mark does manage to get you through a day on one charge, which is a strong point for this phone. The Iluga Mark sells for about 12,000 rupees, and while that's a great price, it just feels like Panasonic made a lot of compromises to get there, which is surprising considering you get a lot of phones at this price which are miles ahead of Mark. Disappointingly, Panasonic continues to be behind the curve when matched up against the competition. Now, I've had really fond memories of using those old Panasonic cordless landline phones all through my childhood, and I really wished I would have stopped right there and not ventured into the Panasonic Iluga, because clearly this phone has not given me any fond memories whatsoever. It's fully equipped with a highly fidgety fingerprint scanner, it's an average performer, and the camera really sucks. So I really think I did Gaurav a favor by snatching this phone away from him, because clearly this phone is below even his standards. I'm out.
This friend of mine suggested that he can actually make a 3D model of my face and turn it into a cool speaker. Don't believe me? Take a look.
Bluetooth speakers are a weird segment. These tiny speakers aim to offer portable, decent quality sound without relying on too much of footprint. In a market saturated with almost hundreds of these things, how do you stand out? Spire Design seems to think the answer may be in the look of the speakers themselves, and they might be partially correct. Let's get this out of the way first. This is not something that can be called subtle. These things are shaped like a miniature human skull, complete with an annoying laugh. The material used in its construction make it really shiny and lightweight. Needless to say, this is not an aesthetic that will please everyone. You will either love it or hate it. We tend to think it looks kind of, tacky, if that's the right word. But we are sure there will be tons of people who will love the look of this thing. The eye sockets of the skull, the speaker house two 4.5 watt satellites, while at the back there is a 9 watt subwoofer. Of course, these things won't get as loud and clear as your desktop or TV speakers, but that's not what they are competing against. For what these are, they sound surprisingly good. They get plenty loud with enough clarity to be your go-to portable sets on the move. The music sounds crisp with a hint of distortion at high volumes. Of course, as with all Bluetooth speakers, there is a problem of stereo separation, more so with these, seeing as how the satellites are so close together. Needless to say, if you aren't a fan of portable Bluetooth speakers, these won't do much to change your mind. At 3,000 rupees, these aren't exactly cheap, but they aren't going to burn a hole in your pocket. And for that price, well, these are at least worth a shot as a single-use novelty item.
Motorola's Moto G 3rd generation was facing a stiff competition and its popularity was on a decline. So the company decided to give it a turbocharge. They actually did, and they call it the Moto G Turbo. Take a look.
Over the last few years, Motorola's Moto G smartphones have really become popular, not only in India but throughout the world, because they have always provided a blend between reliable performance, an ergonomic design and fast updates for Android. Earlier this year, we were really impressed by the 3rd generation Moto G because it added a really good rear camera into the mix along with water resistance. So what else can you add in a phone that costs around about 15,000 rupees? Well, Motorola thinks it can do a little bit more. Its answer is this new Moto G Turbo. So what's new here? A few subtle changes which really enhance the entire experience of the Moto G. For instance, Motorola has subtly tweaked the fascia of the phone, which overall just make the phone a little prettier and don't affect the ergonomics because you still get this really nice back out here. Also, you get a brain transplant out here. Gone is the quad-core processor, now you get a punchy Qualcomm 615 octa-core processor which really improves the performance and makes the phone pretty fast. Also, now you get a turbocharger through which actually the phone gets its name from. So this basically means this phone is going to charge at a blistering rate. It's really an enhancement of the Moto G experience and we really recommend it. But if you already own a 3rd generation Moto G, then perhaps you can hold your horses and wait for the phone that Motorola will launch next year. Think about it.
Welcome back. You're still watching Gadgets and Gizmos. My name is Gaurav Prethi. Now, people often complain that their phones are not performing as well as they expected them to be. It happens, my friend. Don't you worry. Here are a few hacks that you can use to improve the performance of your Android device. Take note. People often complain that their phone is not really giving the performance that it initially did, and this especially happens when your phone is kind of getting old. Fret not, you can always make use of these handy tips to ensure that your phone is up to mark and giving you the performance that you desire, and also giving it that extra life, especially when it's in the dying stages.
What's a smartphone without any apps? But too many apps means having too many people in the room and they will eat all your food. So only keep the apps that you need and uninstall that you don't. And avoid installing apps from third-party stores and torrent sites. Installing apps from unverified sources is calling for unnecessary trouble. Keep track of your system RAM periodically. It doesn't matter if your phone's a multitasking beast with abundance of RAM. Unnecessary resource hogging isn't required. Stick with the apps that you're currently using and kill all that you won't. Keeping your RAM space free gives your phone room to breathe. You won't want to choke it, do you?
Now, often people feel very excited when they hear that the memory is expandable via micro SD card to up to 128 GB. But in reality, one should avoid using micro SD card altogether. Now, they might give you that extra space, but in the long run, they will slow your phone down.
Keep a check on app updates. Automatic updates are handy, but manuals always better. This way you know what updates are coming your way at all times. Also, you know what's the size and everything, so you'll be aware of how much space they'll be hogging. Avoid filling internal storage to the brim. This means possibly delete or take out old photos or files that you may no longer access on day-to-day basis. An internal storage chip that is almost full has slower, in some cases significantly slower read and write speeds.
Those are the few handy tips and tricks that will ensure that your phone's performance is improved, and it also gets that much needed extra life, because we don't want to spend money on the phones all the time. Also, one last tip, avoid using those live wallpapers and widgets, because they will be using all the processing power and the battery all the time. It's very simple. Avoid unnecessary things in life and your life would be awesome. Time to see what's making news in the world of technology. It is time for Tech News.
Google CEO Sundar Pichai was in India to speak at the Google for India event in Delhi. The important things that he said was that Google will help women from 3 lakh villages across India to get online within 3 years. Google plans to ramp up engineering presence in Hyderabad to make products for India. Google also plans to have 500 railway stations in India to get Wi-Fi services by 2017. Google will enable live cricket updates through a simple Google search from early 2016. India to have more Android users than the United States of America, and Project Loon, which was announced a couple of years ago, will come to India, said Pichai. Microsoft on Friday launched its budget Windows 10 mobile called the Lumia 550 in India at a price of 9,399 rupees. The Lumia 550 features a polycarbonate shell body and has a 4.7-inch HD IPS display. It's powered by a 1.1 GHz Snapdragon 210 processor with 1 GB RAM and 8 GB internal storage. The single SIM phone supports 4G and runs on Windows 10 mobile out of the box. And also for people who are waiting for that Windows 10 update, well, you'll have to wait a little longer as it's been delayed by early 2016. Indian consumer electronics firm Micromax Informatics will manufacture all of its phones in India by 2018, its co-founder said, as it shifts production from China back home, where costs are becoming cheaper. Micromax brand U on Thursday launched what it claims to be the world's most powerful smartphone, Utopia. The Utopia comes with a 5.2-inch WQHD screen and is powered by a Snapdragon 810 processor with 4 GB of RAM. This 4G-enabled phone is running on Cyanogen OS 12.1 out of the box. The phone also has 32 GB internal storage that can be expanded and is priced at 24,999 rupees. Facebook is offering employees at its Silicon Valley headquarters at least $10,000 to move closer to the office, a reflection of challenges many tech companies face in the increasingly expensive and congested San Francisco Bay Area. To qualify for the payment which the social networking firm started offering in the last 12 months, the employee must buy or rent a home within 10 miles of Facebook campus. Well, we can just say, lucky you.
Alright, with that, it's a wrap. We hope you enjoyed watching the episode, and we'll be back next week with more of Gadgets and Gizmos. See you.